Hello again, and welcome to episode 2 of Penrose From Scratch. Last time, we basically followed the Getting Started guide. We didn't use the Getting Started guide in the video, like following along, mainly because sitting and reading through a guide in person, it's kind of boring. It's not cool. Trust me, that's what we did. If you want to go have a look at the guide, there's a link to it. It's going to be in the description for this video. And it goes through some stuff in a bit more detail. There's some bits I kind of glossed over just from what I was doing. But if you go through the guide, there's plenty of links out to how you can get Rust set up and installed, a bit more of an explanation about how the kind of cargo tom and stuff works. And generally kind of just a bit more information, a bit more of a reference for what we did. But pretty much that was it. We used the minimal example, we got that set up and compiling, we ran the tests, and right now we are running our window manager. This is Penrose From Scratch. Yeah, this isn't just like an OBS scene, this is it. When I said from scratch, and when the file was minimal, yeah, minimal. This is what you get, your desktop, and nothing else. But we can do things. So we can, for example, jump between workspaces. So currently, this is workspace 9. There's no real way to tell that, mainly because we don't have a status bar. So I think one of the first things we get set up today. But I can jump to workspace 2. And we have my terminal. If I jump to workspace 3, I've got Chromium. But yeah, so I've got a couple things set up and prepared for today. First bit is been adding some more stuff into the repo locally. You can see I'm 3 commits ahead. Just doing a bit of tidy up, and then once I've got this video recorded and sorted out, I'll push that up to GitHub, and that will be available. One of the main things I've sorted out is just putting a bit more information in place, tidying up a few things in the scripts. I got rid of that floating webcam script. I was using that and then had some horrible code that was kind of pinning that to every workspace and using Penrose to move the webcam between workspaces. OBS is a thing. So yeah, let's use OBS. That means that we can kind of just have that working without needing some horrible hacks. Because yeah, that was disgusting. I've thought of a better way of doing that. So we might come back and see about implementing that in a nicer way later on. We'll see. But for now, we have OBS, so I can kind of remove myself from the corner if I get in the way of the code. So, you know, that's nice. Other thing I've done is put together this progress file, which is kind of a changelog. I'm not calling it a changelog because it's a bit more of a kind of episode guide, I suppose, but it's a combined episode guide and changelog. And it's going to have a little summary of each video, links off to the things. I should probably put links to the videos as well. I'll get that added before I push this to GitHub. But also, scrolling through that's going to be a bit of a pain, and so I've got a quick little script, progress.sh, which is that. It's an awk one-liner, but rather than me try to remember the awk one-liner, or you folks at home having to remember the awk one-liner, it's a script. So if you do progress.sh and the episode number, it will dump out what we did that episode. So last time around, there was a lot of kind of preamble and chat about stuff, but basically we bootstrapped our window manager. We set up our crate with our dependencies, got the main RS out of that minimal example that's in GitHub, and then what we added to that was a makefile for helping set that stuff up, and the xsession file. I think I cover the xsession file and kind of the stuff that's in the makefile in the Getting Started guide, but I tend to like to put that stuff into scripts and makefiles, just so it's easy to reuse. So yeah, that's kind of where we left stuff at. if you followed along last time, we said once you'd run sudo make install and you made sure you had that X session file in place, you should be able to log out and go in your display manager and select Penrose From Scratch as your X session. And if you log in, it should kind of look like this. Probably not with the cookie monster. Depends on what your desktop default desktop is. But you can set your background really easily. I use, oh yeah, let's not use that because the text is tiny there. I use fe. I don't know, does fe stand for something? No, it's just the fe image viewer. But yeah, it's super simple and just a way of quickly setting a file you have, an image file you have as a background. I know other people use nitrogen, things like that. I've always used fe. Doesn't matter. But yeah, you can set your background. All that kind of stuff we'll look at later because you probably want to have some kind of setup script kind of bits and pieces. I keep tripping myself up at the moment with this because I have a bunch of things that I run on startup, like a network manager and power manager and USB device manager and what else do I have? Oh yeah, screen lock. We don't have screen lock at the moment. So yeah, you probably want to log out rather than leave your machine with this running at the moment. But that's kind of the stuff that we're going to have a look at. Today, however, we are going to do this. Like we said, the minimal example is super minimal. There's really not that much to it, so we want things to be a little more comfortable. So there's a few things we're going to do. First one, which is very important, is at the moment you can't really log out. If we have a look at our key bindings, we have mod alt escape bound to the exit function. And the exit function is super dumb and simple. It literally just is like system exit 0. So it just closes the program cleanly and Penrose stops. But we are not just running in the wrong direction. We are not just running Penrose, if you remember from last time. We are running this, which is a little shell script that is running Penrose from scratch. So that's our binary that we've written in Rust in an infinite loop. And this is so we can do hot reloading and editing of our window manager as we go. Pretty much. If we didn't have this, then when we exited, Penrose would stop and you log out. And that would mean you'd be logging out every time you edited your window manager. It's kind of annoying. Also means that if something happens that crashes your window manager, you just immediately exit to the login screen. It's a bit nicer if we can kind of catch that and restart the window manager, see if we can kind of recover. So this is good, this works, but what that means is you can't really log out using that exit function. That doesn't work anymore, because all that does is exit this, and then we exited cleanly, so we restarted, and then while true, we do it again. So what you kind of have to do at the moment is that. Penrose from Scratch. I'm not going to hit enter on that, because if I do, this video recording is over and I'll need to restart. But if you do that at the moment, that will get you out of Penrose from Scratch. It's kind of brutal. It's basically just kill the wrapper script and Penrose itself. But what we want to do is have that bound to a key so that we can do it ourselves. Rather than have to run it in the shell. We're also going to set up a status bar. I think we might do the status bar first, actually. Let's do that first, because not having a status bar is really quite jarring and confusing. Find it hard to know which workspace I'm on, which makes jumping between things a bit confusing and weird. We're also going to add something called EWMH hooks. If you've used Xmonad before, you might be familiar with this idea of wrapping your config in an EWMH hooks kind of wrapper. I won't go into a huge amount of detail about what that means right now, I've linked off in this file, so if you look at it once I upload it to GitHub, there'll be a link to what EWMH is. It stands for Extended Window Manager Hints. It's like a protocol extension for X11, essentially. It's a bunch of extra data that you can make available to programs. So things like Polybar, if you've ever wondered how Polybar can know what your workspaces are and where programs are and all that kind of stuff, it's using EWMH. By default, Penrose doesn't set that, so things like Polybar just won't work. But it's a one-liner to add it in, and we might as well. I don't have it by default, just because if you don't want it and need it, you shouldn't have to have it. That's kind of the general philosophy for Penrose, is use what you want. That does mean that you need to go and add in the things that you want to use though. So we'll have a look. And then last bit, I suppose, that we'll kind of close out on is having a look at layouts. To get the status bar working, we're going to need to do something with the layouts. I'll explain when I get to that point, because we kind of need to tell the layout algorithm that's setting the window positions, hey, there's a status bar here, and don't lay out the windows on top of that status bar. There is like an X way of doing this. It's called like avoid struts or something like that. I've not got that implemented at the moment. I just use this instead. We probably should implement that though, so that's a thing that we can have a look at later down the line. So with all that in mind, let's reorder things a little bit. So I think the order we're going to do stuff in is adding in the EWMH hooks, because that's nice and simple. We're then going to set up the status bar. And setting up the status bar is going to involve just doing something with the layouts, which we will look at afterwards in a second. And then we're going to have a proper look at layouts and see how that works. And then last thing, we'll add in that key binding for restart. And then I think next episode, we might have a proper look at how key bindings work, how we write them, what kinds of things you can bind to keys, all that kind of good stuff. But by the end of this episode, the idea is we should be in a position where the setup we've got is workable, as opposed to completely bare bones. Because at the moment it is completely bare bones. So, let's get cracking. For now, we're probably just going to keep with what we were doing last time, where we're going to take stuff out of the examples. We will get to kind of just straight up coding sessions down the line, but for now, especially for bootstrapping stuff, this is why I provide all the examples, is for a lot of the common things that you want to do, a lot of the kind of simple out-of-the-box stuff, and you just want to kind of root around in there and see what you want to use. Steal from the examples, that's why they're there. So we're going to go to the Penrose examples. This is the minimal one we used last time. We're going to do a couple of things. So one, we're going to grab that EWMH, which using it really is pretty simple. It's this. We just call this one function around our config when we make it. That's kind of it. So that is found here. So I think I mentioned this last time. The code base for Penrose is kind of split into like top level sections. So there's the core, which, as it sounds, is like the core kind of data types and structs and functions and things like that that actually make your window manager work. So that's where you bring in the window manager and the config. But that's also where you find things like all of the helpers and stuff you need for making key bindings and your own layouts and stuff like that. There's then something that I call built-in, which is minimal kind of stuff you would expect from a window manager built on top of that core layer. So that's kind of the standard layout algorithms and standard kind of key binding actions like logging out, or helpers for writing those kinds of things, or spawning programs, that kind of stuff. And then there's a section called extensions. And extensions is, best way to put it, fancier stuff. So stuff that is a bit more involved. You're probably going to have a bit more code involved in each one of those. And compared to the built-in stuff, built-in you almost certainly want to use. Extensions, at that point, you're adding functionality. It's what kinds of things do you want to use. So we're going to add that. And actually, am I already out of whack? No, EWMH was what we were going to do first. That's fine. So built-in core extensions. So we're going to go to extensions, hooks, and add EWMH hooks. And this is literally just setting up some extra code that will run as the window manager does its thing. I think we'll have an episode about hooks and everything that we do with them further down the line. But simplest thing is that it's kind of callbacks is probably a nice way of thinking it, or plugins, that kind of idea. Basically, there's certain points when the window manager is doing things, it checks to see if you've given it any hooks that it should be running, and if you have, it will run your code before it does something. And when we get to talking about hooks, we'll look at all the documentation for that, because it explains kind of when your hook gets called and what your kind of responsibilities for writing the hook are. So things you should do, things you shouldn't do. If you do completely arbitrary, weird things inside of a hook, you can completely deadlock your window manager. So you do need to be careful. But that's why we're practicing, and that's why we're going through this. So all we're going to do just now is this. So we're going to do add EWMH hooks. We're going to wrap our config in those hooks, and then we'll drop that into our window manager. And that's it for that one. Like I said, it's one I provide out of the box. You don't definitely want it. I think we do want it, so I'm going to add it in. But if you do want it, you shouldn't have to faff around. So yeah, it's a function call. There we go, hooks added. We made progress. So we go mark it off. Next thing is a status bar. Now this one's a little more fiddly. We're gonna, like I've said here, we're gonna set up a really simple one. There's various ways that you can do this. The status bar is kind of widget based, and same as with all the built-in and extension kind of stuff I was talking about for the window manager itself, the status bar has got some built-in widgets that you can make use of, and you can write your own as well. There's kind of an API for writing your own. That's probably a thing we'll look at later as well. But if you really just want to say, I just want a status bar, I just want the thing to work, there is a literal out-the-box one that we can add. And so there is an example for that as well. So we'll go to example status bar. And there are two pieces that we need to do for this. So one is the status bar itself. So this comes from Penrose UI. And we're just going to copy that whole import block because we need a couple of different things. So we need a position for the bar. We're going to stick our bar up at the top. We need a text style. So the bar that I've written for Penrose is the same kind of idea as the one that you get for DWM, in terms of it being just a nice little simple rectangle. It's got a fairly simple kind of color palette, color scheme kind of going on, and it's all text based. So you can write widgets, but those widgets are all text. And you can use what's it called, like font awesome, things like that. So you can use like fun kind of character stuff in it. Oh wait, can you? Did I get that working? I think I got that working. We'll find out. If we didn't get that working, that's a thing we should get working. But the main thing is that it's all text. And so you need to kind of give me a little kind of description of how the text should work. And then this helper here, status bar, is our default DWM style status bar. It's way more configurable than this if you want to write one from scratch. We will look at writing one from scratch. My personal config has one that's from scratch. But this is a way of just dropping a simple one in. And to start with, that's what we're going to do. So if we go back to that example, you'll see there is, there's another thing we need. We'll grab that in a sec. So if we look for the status bar, we do this. So the status bar needs a couple of pieces to it. So we need to tell it how high the status bar should be. We need to give it a style, a text style, and then we need to set a kind of foreground and background colors and our position. Now I've defined those as some constants. They're up here. So I'm going to grab that as well. Pop that in here. UI style for the status bar. So this font, you probably want to change to a font that you have on your system. I like ProFont. It's nice. Looks good for a status bar. You probably want something monospaced just so it fits in a bit nicer. And then we've got a couple of different colors. And then I think that's all we needed, right? Bar height, blue, gray, style. Oh no, we need to define the style. That's what we need. Where did I do that? Oh, it's here. Cool. So we have a style. Too much space. And oh, why are you unhappy with that? Oh, really? Did I miss that constant? I did miss that constant. Oh, you're there. Why are you there? No, down here. Oh, I can pop it there. Cool. I don't know why this is the thing I have. Whenever I have big piles of code like that, or constants, I kind of want them to be in order. Either kind of ramped that way, or ramped that. Oh, that's really hard to do. Like that. I don't know. I get kind of mocked by it, mocked for it by my team at work. But yeah, I like it to be pretty. Cool. So that makes our status bar. This little kind of warning here is because it's saying it needs type annotations because we haven't added it into the window manager yet. And this X, you'll see all over the place. So if you're getting an error like this when you've been trying to add something into Penrose and it's saying kind of like, hey, I don't know what X is, that's the kind of generic parameter I use for something that's called the XCon. I keep saying this. I should make a list of all the stuff that we're going to cover. We will cover this one. So the XCon, which is short for X connection, is the bit of code that actually talks to the X11 server. And that is something you can swap out. The main idea for that is I have to work with a Mac for my day job, and I really wanted to be able to use Penrose for work, but I've not managed to work out how to kind of get this kind of logic to run on a Mac yet. But the idea is that you can swap out the backend and have your Penrose config drive something else. So if we do, I think it's bar add is what we need to do. Bar add to, yeah. So if we say bar dot add to that window manager, that should sort it out. Oops. There we go. So now that we've added the window manager, that window manager is set up using our X connection, which is a rustcon, which is using a library called X11RB, which is a fantastic library if you're doing any X stuff. So at that point, we know what X is. X is the rustcon, and so the compiler stops shouting at you. But that's kind of a good place to start. If you ever see about complaining about not knowing what X is, it's probably because you've got something that will work with any X connection. It kind of doesn't care what the X connection is, but you've not said which one you're working with yet. And the compiler is kind of complaining, saying, I don't know what to do with this thing. Once you make use of it, that error should go away. So that's fine. Cool. Okay, so we've got our status bar. We've added it to the window manager. That should work, but there's one thing that we need to do still. And the thing we need to do is we need to tell the layout algorithms that there is a status bar there so that they don't lay out windows on top of the status bar. So the way that we do that is also in this status bar example. And if you have a look where we've got the config, we actually do the config this way. where we are setting the default layouts that the config use to be something that we have set up from a function, which is over here. So we're going to do that. So that's still got our add EWMH hooks, so that's fine. But instead of just doing config default, we're now also setting what the layouts are going to be. And the layouts are found up here. This example, I think, is actually building on the one that sort of does a bunch of stuff with layouts. So it's actually got a bit more going on. So I think we'll just handwrite this one instead. Yeah, because I kind of want to go through layout algorithms properly. So this is adding in several different layout algorithms so you can swap between them. It's also adding in gaps, so you've got gaps in between your windows and various bits and pieces. I'm going to leave that for a future video because we're already at about 25 minutes. So we kind of want to wrap up once we get the layouts sorted. So instead, we're going to use this layout stack thing. And we'll just write this ourselves. So core, I think this is in core layout. Yeah, sorry, that's what I want. And is it in built-in or extensions that I need the reserve top? It's in built-in. Cool. So in built-in, I've got layout. Transformers, reserve top. Cool. So this is going to be a bit cryptic for just now. That's a TLDR on a layout transformer is a layout is the code for positioning all your windows. You can have quite flexible control over that. That will be a whole video, maybe a couple of videos going through how that works. A layout transformer is something you can then wrap around a layout that lets the layout do its thing, and then before everything gets positioned, it tweaks stuff. It can also kind of tweak the way, tweak what gets fed into the layout as well, which is what reserve top's actually going to do. It's basically going to tell the layout, hey, you've got less space than you think you do. Yeah, let's have a function layouts for now. This is, yeah, we'll do this because we're going to need a layout function eventually. So we're going to make a layout stack. A layout stack is just, it's a stack, a pile of layouts that you can work with. That's actually how the window manager works with it, is that it takes, same as that you can have a stack of windows and you can kind of tile them around the screen like that. And then you can kind of cycle through them. The same kind of stack data structure that lets you do that is how you manage the layouts. So you have a stack, you put the layouts inside of that, and that lets you cycle through the layouts that you have available. Cool. So we're going to make a default layout stack. That's the one that we're currently running. It only has the kind of the sort of simple DWM and Xmonad style main window on the left, and then kind of down the side you've got them in a column. And what we're going to do is map map this reserve top over it. And that's going to have the bar height. So map, if you've worked with any kind of functional programming stuff before in JavaScript or Python, or pick your thing that involves map, filter, reduce kind of stuff, it's as it sounds. So a layout stack is the data structure underneath there is a thing that you can kind of iterate through, you can map over, you can filter it in the same kind of way that you would do with an array or a vector or a list or whatever. And so this is us just going through everything that's in that stack and putting this reserve top wrapper around it to make sure that we've got some space. But now we shouldn't have any errors. Unused import layer. Ooh, I didn't want that. I think that's been brought in by autocomplete condition. Okay, cool. Cool, so we have our key bindings, that's good. We've got our layout function, which is still just going to be the default for just now, but we're going to reserve the bar height. We've got our style. We've built our config that is adding in the EWMH hooks, and it's using those layouts that have got the reserved space at the top. We're making a simple status bar, and we're adding that to the window manager. Cool. So we're going to... None of those tests should have broken because we've not modified the key bindings in any way, but let's just make sure. And then once that's sorted, we will recompile, and then we'll be able to restart. Now, I tried this before when I was sort of testing stuff out to make sure that OBS wouldn't kind of just crash when the window manager restarted. It doesn't. Depending on how this goes, it kind of freaks out a little bit. We'll have a look. It should be all right, but it might freak out a bit. So, make build, sudo make install. And, oh, the other thing I spotted is, no, this time my video seems okay. Last time round, my video lagged massively because my poor little ThinkPad was trying to record OBS and compile in release mode at the same time. And yeah, the frame rate tanked. Maybe it was doing it there for a bit. So yeah, if you see the frame rate tank, yeah, that's me compiling in release mode while recording a video, and it looks like my ThinkPad's not happy with that. Cool. So, built in release mode, everything copied across, we're good to try and restart. So, if all goes well, I'm going to hit Mod Alt Escape. That's going to kill this build of Penrose. It will pick up the new one that we've just compiled, and we should have a status bar. Cross your fingers. Mod Alt Escape. Hey, nice. The downside is like I said, everything moves to the wrong screen. So we've got that over there, that over there, and I just have some tidying up on my OBS screen, and we're back. Cool. So that worked. Fantastic. If you have a look up at the top, wow, that status bar is tiny. We probably need that a bit bigger for YouTube, so we'll see. But if you look here, we can change between things, and you should see that the focused workspace, that one that's back highlighted in blue, is changing. And we can flip between things. Cool. Success. I'd call that success. Now, what you'll notice is there's a bit over... Oh, no, you won't notice because I'm covering it up. Let's put my marker on. Up in this top corner, it just says Penrose. So if I do x set root, so I've done foo, hello YouTube. We get hello YouTube, which you might be able to see. The font is tiny. This is the kind of same behavior you get from the DWM status bar, where you can run x set root, you can put whatever text you want in there, and that will get displayed in your status bar. So do I still have a script in here that does that? I don't, no, okay. So we'll look at that next time. You can have you can write a simple shell script that you kick off on startup that just loops and looks at your system information and then sets the root, uses x set root to just whatever text you want to have in your status bar. That's a very common thing you'll see from Exponent and DWM and things like that. The default status bar for Penrose supports that. It also supports built-in widgets that do that for you. We'll have a look at how we set up both. But for now, on our progress list, we've got that sorted, we've got that sorted. So the last thing is we want an exit key binding, and then we're done. So if we go back to source main, we had mod alt escape is actually, this is actually just a restart for us. And if we add another one, so let's do mod control escape, and this time we're going to use the spawn helper. So same as spawning our terminal, we're just going to spawn a program, oops, and it's going to be pkill -fi Penrose. and that should do it. So that is basically just force kill Penrose and the wrapper script. A bit disgusting, but it does work. And that means that we can have two key bindings, one for restarting and one for actually exiting and logging out. So mod alt escape will restart, mod control escape will log out. What I like to do is pop up a little menu of choices and I can pick which one I want. We'll have a look at that. I suppose we need to work out next time if we're going to do layouts or if we're going to do key bindings. I'll see if anyone's got any suggestions or requests. Pop those in the comments down below, and we'll see which one we pick up next. But when we come to doing a proper look at key bindings, I'll show you how we can make a little kind of pop-up menu that we can work with, and that makes sort of working with that kind of thing a little bit nicer, which is kind of cool. But for now, we've done with that, and we've kind of finished our to-do list for today. So I think that's us. So thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying following along. If you're liking it, then standard YouTuber stuff, have a like. If you want to follow along, then subscribe or bookmark the playlist, either way, and have a look. And yeah, check out the code once it's up in GitHub and see how you get on. Like I was saying in some of the comments in response to some of the comments on the first video, if you've got any requests for stuff to cover or things that you want to know how to do, please let me know and we'll see if we can cover that. But for now, I'm going to finish up and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.